the first time, welcome. This is an exciting morning. And last weekend, for the last 2 weeks, we had
Alan and Polly.
It was amazing. And they spoke about relationships, how to communicate. And I think this week we put into practice some of the things.
Oh, you and me put into practice? Yes, we had to practice really hard what we learned in the last 2 weeks.
We had to put into practice how to listen to one another, how to communicate. Taylor, hello, I see you waving. We see you. How to communicate. And I think the tools they gave us, it's so practical, so easy to put into practice. And so just
Could you tell us, Joey, how Lucky did?
He did.
Today I'm doing better. I had a really rough 2 weeks. It was really bad actually for 2 weeks.
But we got through. We used the community star, and we were able to share things. And
we've been hearing about mirroring only for 20 years, but I decided to use it finally after listening to it for 20 years. You know, it's like the Emmanuel prayer and everything else we learned from Barbara, like joy. And I use it once in a while.
But one of the things.
Good job, Lucky.
Thank you.
One of the things I really put into practice was, it says, how do I value my partner even when I don't like him? So I wasn't liking Lucky that much for these last 2 weeks, but
I said, do you like me? And she says, not this last 2 weeks. I haven't liked you very much. I'm like, oh, thanks a lot, you know?
Oh, that's being honest.
Yes, you valued me.
Huh?
Yeah.
But I was valuing him. So it works. It worked. It was pretty cool actually to like.
And we're back on top of it for the last 2 days. So. But it's been a rough 2 weeks for me, at least.
Yeah. So I guess you guys can go back. I will encourage you to listen. Go back to your notes. It was super good. And today, it's another exciting day. But before we start, I wanted to see if actually Lucky wanted to ask Ana Guerra. Anita, are you there? Will you open us up in prayer as we receive this amazing speaker today?
Sure.
Wonderful morning and all the beautiful things. Like we all have, I always say we have all these toolboxes and we come with empty toolboxes, without toolbox empty, and we begin to get tools that we begin to learn to use and put into practice in our life. So I think today this speaker is going to fill up a good space of our toolbox with tools to be able to connect with God, to live in joy, to have happy relationships. So, and I think that's something we're all yearning and longing and looking for. But Anna, would you open us up in prayer?
Oh my goodness. Okay, what an honor. All right. So Barbara, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I'm looking forward to today's session to obtain your wisdom. So Father God, thank you for this Saturday morning, and may all of us be present this morning so that we could hear your voice through Barbara. May it speak to each of us individually as you love us that way. And may we expand our minds and our perceptions of what joy means in our life through Barbara today. And let's not settle for happiness anymore, but let's welcome and embrace in its full potential what joy means and what joy could mean in our lives, in our relationships. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Wow, Anna, I love what you said. Let's not settle for happiness. I love that.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Well,
Yep.
Is everybody muted? Hold on a second.
Those are my expectations, by the way. No.
Okay.
So Gigi, welcome back. Let's also welcome Gigi and Giorgio. They're back from their so well-deserved holiday. You look so tan, Gigi.
I was wondering.
It was nice to be able to relax and really relax. Because it's not about going anywhere. It's about actually relaxing and being able to. Thank you, Lucky and Joe, because I
No, I'm so glad you guys went and were able to do that. So with that, all this
If you
said,
notice, I never texted you, I never called you, I never emailed you. Blank. And I'm sorry that everybody else did, but that's between you and them. Right, Giorgio?
Where's Georgia?
Yeah, I'm too relaxed actually.
well, welcome back. Welcome back. Without any,
Further ado,
I don't know how to pronounce that word, so that's why I pass it to Lucky. I can say without.
further ado.
That's why we complement each other.
We're going to introduce the speaker a little bit, and then Barbara's going to get started. Barbara Moon is a writer, a speaker, a prayer counselor, a mentor, and a small group leader. That's very good. In case all of you don't know, Barbara is part of the group that is from Life Model. They're the people that we've used for years now in our classes, the maturity cycles, the joy cycles. And actually, I was talking to Barbara yesterday, and I was thinking, wow, maybe one session won't be enough, but let's see how today goes. Barbara lives in Atlanta, Georgia, where she enjoys sewing, reading, blogging, and teaching preschoolers to swim. Mother of 4 grown children and 11 grandchildren, Barbara enjoys spending time with her family. Avid reader and author, Barbara writes books based on biblical principles intertwined with brain science, such as joy-filled relationships. You know, that's a promise from Jesus that we're supposed to have joy, and if we don't, Barbara might, well, she might show us some ways, because that was one of my great struggles in the beginning when I first became a Christian. I would read the Bible about joy and peace and all that, and I was like, nothing was happening. And as I started to do the Lord started to do deep inner healing work on my personal life, I can see stuff. I mean, I am more joyful than I've ever been in my life. I'm not perfect. If anybody's hearing I'm perfect, text me on the side and I'll tell you I'm not. Meet with me and you'll know I'm not perfect, but I'm better than I've ever been. Ask my wife and ask my children. So a lot of what it takes to relate well with others, you can learn through skills and exercises taught in this book. You learn what it takes to have conversations and supportive relationships and others that are filled with joy instead of pain. You learn healthy ways to handle your internal battles with your emotions of anger, hurt, frustration, and shame. I won't go on. There's a lot to say about.
But I think some of these things, I think it's things that we truly long in our hearts. It says to be able to have conversations and supportive relationships with others that are filled with joy instead of pain. And I think a lot of the time we've learned to relate to one another with pain, you know? We've learned to one another and we hurt each other. And I think this resonated in my heart, because this is one of the things we have strived and we have worked so hard at, Lucky and I, because for many years our relationship and the way we communicated, the way we did things and with others was
and our parents.
It was not with joy, it was with a lot of pain.
And with each other, it was terrible.
So so let's welcome with a big round of applause our amazing speaker today. I've never had the pleasure of speaking to her or meeting her. Lucky has spoken to her. I know Gigi has spoken to her, but Barbara, we are so honored and so happy you're here. And not only that, that you're on our same time zone. Everyone that has come, it's on the other side. And they have to wake up at 6 in the morning to be here with us, but you're here on the same time zone. So welcome you. We welcome you. You're welcome to, we're so happy you're here. So it's all yours.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here. So I'm going to get my PowerPoint. Just take a second here.
All right, so we are going to look at briefly at these topics, and we're going to do some short exercises, and I'll come back and forth part of the time to help you to explain what we're going to do on the exercises, and hopefully these will work out well. Even though we're on Zoom, most of them will be something that we can do by ourselves. So I want you to listen for definitions and for the practicals. So we're going to start with listening to a manual. I believe that most of you have been exposed to listening prayer, but just in case if you have not, we'll be practicing it in different ways today. And we want to help our prayer life become more conversational and kind of back and forth listening as well as just talking. And then this Emmanuel listening prayer can become a lifestyle of interacting with Jesus all during the day. So we know that we can sense Jesus in our hearts and minds. And he longs for our relationship to be real in real time, not just something that we are doing in our heads. And we trust that we're hearing Jesus unless what we hear doesn't fit with his character. Excuse me. So if this is new to you, some people will say, well, I don't know if it's me or Jesus. I don't know if I'm making this up. So we're going to trust that we are hearing him when we've asked him a question, if it fits with his character, if it's not evil. God's voice never condemns. If he wants to speak to us about something, it'll be about our behavior. It'll be about conviction. So this is one of the easiest ways to know if what we're hearing is Jesus, is that if it's condemnation, then it will not be from him. Other people can help us learn this skill by sharing our stories. When we share our stories, then the people listening can say, yes, I believe that's something that God would say. Today, when we do the exercises that involve listening prayer, we won't be able to share, but I will have on the slide for you to share your story later as part of the exercise, even though we won't be able to do it as we go. Practicing listening gets easier. So we're going to start out by practicing. And on this one, I'm going to guide you. This will just take about 3 minutes. So I can't see everybody, so I'm just going to watch the ones that I can see.
And
So
I can help you, Barbara, if you need me to help you see the rest of the people, okay?
Well, I can unshare, but it's okay. I'm just gonna guide.
Miss Barbara, may I interrupt you for a minute, please?
Yes, sir.
I know most of you because we meet with most of you one-on-one, apart from the support groups and the classes. I would dare say almost 100 out of 100 of you tell me you cannot hear, you don't know how to hear, you don't hear from God because you don't see a burning bush just like Moses. But here's an opportunity. I hope you're all paying attention, and let's do the work to see how to hear from God. This is one of the different ways that we can hear from God. Sorry, Miss Barbara, I just wanted to, encourage
That's
everyone.
okay. It helps because I don't really know the audience.
Yeah, we hear this a lot, that we can't hear from God, we don't hear from God. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to review again that if we're going to be asking Jesus specific questions, off and on through the class here. This is the first one, then we're going to be doing 2 or 3 other ones. And if I ask a particular question and you hear something in your heart and in your mind, just trust that it's him. If it sounds anything like what you think he is like from the scripture. and kind of open your heart and take a risk. If you don't hear anything, or you don't sense anything, or have a picture, these things are nonverbal, they don't have to be words exactly, then don't feel bad. And don't beat up on yourself, because as I said, it gets easier when you practice. So let's close our eyes. I'm going to talk to Jesus for a minute. Lord, I thank you for this group of people that hunger for your love and for your relationship. And I thank you for each one that you know exactly what they need. And so I just pray that this exercise will touch them and begin maybe a new journey of being able to interact with you. So I want you to start out by remembering a time that you know that Jesus was with you. It could even be when you got saved. It doesn't have to be recent. And as you remember a time that you knew Jesus was with you, ask him for a sense of his presence with you now. And as you sit quietly with your heart open, ask Jesus, what do you want me to know today? Or what do you have for me today? Notice the first thing that comes into your mind. And trust that it's Jesus. So Jesus, I thank you for these moments that we have spent with you. Amen. Now, if you sensed anything or saw like a picture or just a sense, or you heard some words, just jot them down wherever you're taking your notes. And then later, share with somebody what you sensed or heard. So we will come back to doing that kind of an exercise in a couple of other different ways. So now I'm ready to look at joy. So first we're going to look at what it means to be in joy, and then we're going to look at what it means to build joy. So being in joy is relational, and this is the first definition that I want you to get. Joy means someone is glad to be with me. I'm the sparkle in someone's eye. It's really, really different to take this as our definition of joy, because it will have nothing to do with circumstances. People can be glad to be together regardless of what's going on in the circumstances. So it's a little bit different than everything is happy. And we want to keep this definition in mind as we go. Because it means that someone's glad to be with me, it takes at least two. And Jesus can be the other person. He's always glad to be with us, no matter what's going on. We can train our brains to be glad to be together and to return to joy when things get upset. We'll be looking at that a little bit later. Excuse me. I hadn't talked this morning before before I got on. All right, so let's look at what it means to build joy. Building joy is nonverbal because it's on the right side of our brain. We build joy face to face and eye to eye. That's the best way. And voice tone is part of it. Pleasant smells and food. We attach to each other when we eat together. Proper touch. Temperature, like the room and our bodies are comfortable. Singing is a joy builder. Pets are joy builders. Babies and elders can be joy builders. Anything that gives life. And having fun together.
Sounds like Hope for Life.
What?
Sounds like when we gather at Hope for Life.
Oh yes, I could tell that already this morning. This is very important for families, churches, groups, all relationships, because we want to live in a high joy environment. We want our environment to be full of people being glad to be together. So let's look for a minute at how relational joy fits with the brain. Our brain was designed by God to be fueled by joy. It works and synchronizes through joy, through being glad to be together. This is the right side of our brain that we're talking about, that is the relational side. Our brains are built to amplify what we see on another person's face. This is how we get our identity. We can amplify joy or distress depending on what's on the face. And I like to tell people that this is how the babies, when the babies are first born, and that after about 2.5, 3 months, when we do all the face-to-face smiling and building joy with them, that's how they get their identity. But then I like to throw in there that when your children become early teens, maybe even late preteens, and everything starts to change, how we have to relate to them, how we have to discipline, how we have to do everything differently, our teenagers are going to find their new identity based on our faces as well. So it's a little more difficult to be glad to be together with a stinky teenager. But that's what we want to be on our faces. We want joy to be on our faces, just like we did when they were little. Without joy, we feel down, unwanted, alone, unloved, and we can't handle the stress. When we don't have a good amount of joy in our brain, then we're going to get overwhelmed real easily. So let's look at how, a little bit further at how the brain fits in there. The part of our brain that we call the joy center is the right prefrontal cortex. It's right behind your right eye. And this becomes 35% of the adult brain. So a baby is born with that part of their brain there, but it's not developed. And it gets developed the first couple of years of life, and it's over 1/3 of the adult brain. So we want this part of our brain to be full and large. We like to think of it like a bucket. It needs both size and capacity, and that's determined by joy. And the good news is that it can continue to grow throughout life. So if we did not get what we needed growing up, it can grow. So the size and capacity determine how we handle distress. So as you can tell by the picture, if joy is bigger and fuller, then upset, then we're going to stay, our brain's going to stay together. It's not going to melt down. But if our joy is low and our distress is larger, then we're going to get overwhelmed. So let's look at some of the benefits of joy when we're handling distress. This is the gauge for my level of maturity, how I handle distress. Am I able to stay myself and be relational when difficulties come? If I have a full joy bucket, I'm less likely to go into overwhelm. We'll be looking at a little bit more at what happens when we're in overwhelm. I won't lose important brain functions, because when we go into overwhelm and our brain melts down or desynchronizes, we lose a lot of important relational skills. And I'll be less likely to turn to addictions to cover up pain. So lots and lots of people glad to be with me can help prevent addictions. So what happens when we don't have enough joy? When our joy center, our joy bucket goes off or melts down, we lose part of our fast track. This is the right side of our brain, and this little list right here is not even exclusive, but it's enough to make us sit up and notice that we don't want this part of our brain to go off. We lose impulse control, the ability to focus, moral and social behavior, goal-directed behavior, whatever level of maturity that we've earned, the ability to calm. We lose our identity. We don't know who we are. We don't know what it's like us to do. And we lose the ability to suffer well, which means that we can stay relational and act like ourselves. And on top of all of that, most likely the left side of our brain has gone off and we can't hear words or instructions. So this is a big part of where we want to keep our brain going. So now we're going to stop acting like ourselves, and we're now in enemy mode. Enemy mode is when we are upset with somebody that we usually like, or we just don't want to be with them. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. So joy or lack of joy affects the relational circuits in the brain, and that's what we're talking about going off. So this is this is one of the most important things I'm going to be teaching today. One of the most important and practical.
Barbara, can I interrupt you for a quick second?
I'm sorry.
May I interrupt you for a second? Would it be okay if we get these notes so we can send them to people later? Because it's...
Yes, I think so. It's hard to take them fast enough.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And also, if you have questions as we go, just write them down, and we're going to do a question and answer at the end. Also, a couple of the slides I'm going to do, you won't have time to write them down after I guide you, but you can take a picture of it. All right, so let's look at what happens when our relational circuits go off. This is a part of our brain on the right side of our brain. And when we get overwhelmed, which I think most everybody kind of knows how they feel when they're overwhelmed, the relational circuits go off. And this is how you know if your relational circuits are either off or dimming and about to go off. It's really, really simple, and you can learn to recognize it and notice it. It's when you feel irritable or you feel annoyed or you get defensive. Some people withdraw. You start accusing, you're fearful, and you're just not acting like yourself. And or we don't want to be with somebody we usually like. So when that happens, when we notice how that feels in our body and in our mind and heart, then we can start to realize that our relational circuits are either already off or about to go off. And this will make a huge difference in how you relate to somebody. Okay, go ahead, Lucky.
Thank you, Miss Barbara. No, I want to remind everyone, I have already many questions. Miss Barbara will do us a question and answer time. So everyone be patient, write down all your questions. At the end, I don't know what that means, what it looks like at the end, but we're gonna have that time. Thank you. I know you said that, Miss Barbara, but I just like to remind people because what you're saying is so good and so important. I mean, all my circuits are going off, and my last 2 weeks have been like this. I was telling my wife.
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
I just want to encourage everyone again. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm going to be, one of the men in my group says that he's being fed by a fire hydrant. That's what it's going to feel like today. I'm giving you 3 hours of things that I spend a whole year on. So I'm giving you little pieces of just a few topics. So hang in there. All right, let's look at some other ways that it's not good to operate with our relational circuits off. It's useless to try to solve a problem. It's useless to discipline kids or have any kind of a discussion when the relational circuits are off. It's very likely that we're going to attack someone's identity. So just mark it up as useless and don't even try. But we're going to talk about how to get them back on and how to continue with the conversation. When your relational circuits are off, and usually your left side of your brain is off too, you can't hear a lecture, you can't hear instructions. And so if you're trying to tell somebody something, they're just going to hear that wah, 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 wah. They're not going to hear anything you're saying. They might hear the words, but it's not going to communicate. Usually when our relational circuits are off, we say things that hurt. And so we don't want to believe what the other person says when their RCs are off. That doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, and doesn't mean that we're not going to have to discuss it, but usually we don't mean things. We say things that we don't mean. And it's also difficult to hear Jesus if the RCs are off because he's a relational being. So when we do these Emmanuel prayer moments in my small groups, or when I do Emmanuel prayer in counseling, we make sure that our relational circuits are on. So maybe some of the people that have been having a hard time hearing God, maybe this will help if we make sure that our relational circuits are on. So here's a little bit more about what happens when they're off. We've lost our connection with God to be able to see what and how he sees. We call this mutual mind. This is in another part of the brain, which we're going to look at later, but it's the other part of the relational circuit. And when this part of our brain has gone off from overwhelm, then it's not that we're not saved. It doesn't mean that we're not saved. It means that we can't find God very easily, and we aren't able to see what it is that he sees. How does he see this situation? How does he see this person? We've lost that. We are now in enemy mode, and we can even see a loved one as an enemy. We're unable to suffer well. I'm going to give you the definition of this. It's not on the slide, so I'll repeat it. Suffering well means that I can stay relational, and act like myself in spite of intense emotions. So suffering well means I can act like myself, stay relational, in spite of intense emotions. So that's what we're looking at today. In several different ways, we're looking at the same thing. What do I do when my emotions are big, things are not going well, things are hard? How do I keep on acting like myself? If you think about Jesus on the cross, it will help you to understand this definition, because he continued to act like himself and stay relational, because he talked to the thief. He told John to take care of his mother. He was singing psalms to God. And so he didn't act any differently because of his suffering. And this can be a learned skill. We've also lost the part of our brain that tells us what it's like us to do. What's it like God's people to do when this is going on, this kind of a situation or these feelings? We've kind of lost that. When we're out of joy with someone, it's very hurtful. It's painful. Doesn't feel good. We want to get back together. So we're going to look at that a little bit later. We've lost our harmony and our shalom. I think sometimes we say, I've lost my peace. So that's another way that we can tell if they're off. So let's look a little bit more at enemy mode. When we're in enemy mode, our relational circuits have gone off. And what comes out of my mouth can be hurtful. So I want to learn to notice that my relational circuits are off and disengage to calm. So this is a practical step right here. So I'm going to say it again. When we can learn to notice that we're annoyed, irritated, don't want to be with this person that we usually like, we want to defend ourselves, all of that little list. When we start to notice, okay, my relational circuits are off, first thing we want to do is disengage to get calm. And we're gonna look at this 2 or 3 different ways. What I mean by disengage is to say something like, I need to take a break, I'll be right back, or I'll be back. It's different than turning around and stomping off and slamming the door and being ugly to somebody that we're upset with. It's that we're going to separate until we can get calm. And we want to remember that attachment love in the brain is stronger than enemy mode. So this is like the verse that says, love covers a multitude of sins. Sometimes it helps to say to yourself, but I love this person. Sometimes that'll help us get them back on. We can learn to love enemies. That won't be the focus of today, but we'll be touching on it a little bit. So we've got this going on. that feels like an enemy, and we want to get back to relational mode. So let's look at how to get these relational circuits back on. Here's several tips that will help you. So in this picture on the right-hand side is a picture of the vagus nerve that runs from the back of our ears hooked to our brain all the way down our body to the and touches all of our it's to the right of this artery and to the left. I don't know if you can see it. I can't really point for you. Oh, wait a minute. I don't know if y'all can see I don't know if you can see my cursor. There's one here and one here. And so we tap on our chest on each side of our sternum. And this is a physical thing that can reset the brain. So don't think that it's new age. It was invented by a lady that works with autistic children. And she came up with several ways to help them calm. So we tap on the vagus nerve, and the way what we're teaching people to do is to take a deep breath while they're tapping, kind of tap to the, about the way your heart beats. Take a deep breath, and then just rub right there as we say, whenever I'm afraid, I will trust in you, O Lord, which is Psalm 56:3. Whenever I'm afraid, I will trust in you, O Lord. So what I do in my groups before we do the Emmanuel prayer moment that we did a little while ago, we just usually tap before we start just to be sure that everybody has their relational circuits on. I didn't do it a few minutes ago because I hadn't taught you how to do it yet. So you take a deep breath, exhale, rub as you say, whenever I'm afraid, I will trust in you, O Lord. This will help. A lot of times it doesn't always help because sometimes the feelings are too big and you need to get help from another person. But this is a simple way. I do it sometimes when I'm driving with one hand on the steering wheel and the other hand tapping so I won't get road rage. All right, let's look at some other ways. We've already talked about taking a break. I need a break. I'll be back in a little bit. We can learn to ask Jesus, where are you right now? Where are you? Not in a, where are you, because this is going on, but where are you right now? Show me. Is Jesus Emmanuel omnipresent? Yes, he is. So he's always with us. He's always here. And we can begin to ask him, where are you right now? And then we want to ask, what do you want me to know? So I want you to have these two questions underlined or starred or however you note yourself. When you are upset and you're trying to get your RCs back on, or you're trying to get back to being relational, these two questions will do a lot. Where are you right now and what do you want me to know? We do not ask why questions. Why is this happening to me? Because Jesus doesn't answer those questions very often. But he will, I've hardly ever had him not answer, what do you want me to know? He might say, trust me. He might say, I'm here. But he generally will answer that question. This is a good thing to put on your refrigerator if you don't already have it there, or your mirror in your bathroom. Relationships are more important than the problem. This can be very life-changing to remember relationships are more important than the problem. And appreciation will also reset the relational circuits. So we're going to do another exercise here. So let me define appreciation the way we remember it, the way we're talking about it today. This is something that you remember that makes you go, ah, and you feel warm and cozy, and it makes you smile. So it can be gratitude. It can be the same thing as gratitude, but I like to think of they're a little bit different. Gratitude's about something kind of like an action. This is more of a feeling. So I'm going to guide you on this exercise. So it's helpful to close your eyes. It's not really a prayer, but it's helpful to close your eyes, and then I'll put up what I've done after I do it. Okay, so you're going to close your eyes. Think about something in nature, or babies, or pets, or some relationship that makes you feel good and makes you smile. It could be a good meal. It can be anything. Birds, flowers. See if you can notice how your body feels. See if you're able to feel this in your body. And enjoy that feeling for a few seconds. Give this appreciation moment either a 1 or 2 word name, like you might say grandkids or butterfly or beach, whatever it is that's, you can name it, just 1 or 2 words. And now open your eyes and write down the name because you're going to need it later. So jot down the name that you gave your appreciation moment. Okay, here's another way to do appreciation. So I'm going to guide this one also. So this time I want everybody to tap on your chest before we do this. So let's tap to be sure that our relational circuits are on. Take a deep breath. Whenever I'm afraid, I will trust in you, oh Lord. Okay. So close your eyes again. Jesus, would you give everyone that's here on our Zoom meeting a good memory? A good memory, something that happened. It could be when they were a child. It could be a Christmas. It could be something that happened yesterday. Would you give them a good memory? Notice while you're in your memory, do you hear anything? Do you smell anything? Is there anybody else in the memory? Another person? Now invite Jesus into the memory. Ask him to show you where he was during this good memory. Ask Jesus, how do you feel about being with me? And notice the first thing that comes into your mind. Take a few seconds to ask Jesus about anything that's bothering you. Listen and notice his response when you say, "What do you want me to know?" And now you may open your eyes when you're ready. So if you want to take a second and jot down whatever happened in that moment, then you can share that later with somebody. Share the good memory and what Jesus said or did. This is a really easy way to prepare your brain to hear Jesus, to go to a good memory, invite him into the memory, and then be ready to hear what he wants you to know. So I want to give you another way to do appreciation that I don't have on a slide. So I'll talk slowly and then I'll repeat it. If you can make a list of appreciation moments, like it could be good memories, it could be things in the nature, people. On my list, I have songs that have made me cry or that have ministered to me, worship songs. Make a list of about 10 appreciation moments. You don't have to make them all at once. You can do this over a few days. And if you will go through these 10 appreciation moments and literally feel them in your body, it's real important that you don't just do it as an intellectual exercise, but you feel them in your body. That's why you need more than one or two, because you can't maintain 5 minutes with just one or two. So you're just going to keep going down your list for about 5 minutes, anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes. And if you do that 3 times a day, it will change your brain. Your brain will say, hey, fear's not my normal. Shame's not my normal. Anger's not my normal. Joy is my normal. So this is something that you can do by yourself with God. If you do it with another person, it's even better. So let me repeat it. Make a list of about 10 appreciation moments. Go down your list and feel them in your body. Just take time. You might feel them 15, 20, 30 seconds. Work towards getting up to 5 minutes a day, 3 times a day, and it will reset whatever your brain learned was normal when you were a baby. All right, I'm going to change topics. We're going to look at synchronizing. This is another part of the relational circuits. The joy bucket was one part. This part is one of the other parts. So this is the other one, another definition that I want you to get. Synchronizing is sharing energy, sharing a mutual mind, and being on the same wavelength with another person, both positive and negative emotions. So synchronizing is sharing a mind, sharing energy, and sharing, kind of being on the same wavelength. This is another very important function for having joy-filled relationships, both with God and with others and with ourselves as well. This is a brain skill that's learned from someone who knows how to synchronize. This cannot be learned over the computer on Zoom. We can talk about it and we can tell stories about it. The stories are very important. When we tell stories to each other about how we've done these skills, it does help on Zoom, but we can't actually do the brain downloading over Zoom because Zoom is too slow. As you can tell when I wave, it's too slow. But we learn it in community from other people who know how to do it. Synchronizing is the basis for all joyful relational bonds. It takes place in the fast track relational side of our brain. So underline the word basis. Synchronizing is the basis for the relational bond. We synchronize before we attach. We synchronize before we can really get the communication going. So let's look a little bit further. I want you to look at this picture. This is 2 of my grandchildren, and this picture was accidental. It was not planned or plotted, but whenever I got it back and took it, I realized it's a perfect picture of good synchronization. They both have the same level of energy on their face. That's not always true. Sometimes we smile bigger than the other person, or they smile bigger than we do. But in this one, it was just a perfect example of synchronization. And this is what builds our joy-filled, secure bonds. Good synchronization. Synchronization communicates love, acceptance, understanding, and importance to the other person. It's a very unselfish thing. When we're synchronizing with someone, when distress or upset is involved, we're not trying to fix them. We're just sharing the feeling. We're just sharing the time, sitting and sharing whatever's going on. We're not trying to fix them. Synchronizing notices the other person and how they feel, which is mind sight. And that's mirror neurons. And I think you mentioned that in your class from last week. That must be part of what they were talking about, mirroring. Synchronizing enables us to stay present so we can synchronize and relate. When this part of our brain stays on, then we don't melt down. This is kind of like the in-between part of the control center, and if it stays on, then the upper part that we've already looked at, the joy bucket, will stay on too, and we won't lose all these functions. So what is it that we're synchronizing? Oh, wait a minute, we're not going to do this. Oh, okay. What I want you to do on this, I'm sorry, I changed this one and I'd forgotten what I put. Okay, this is something for you to do later with somebody that you love. That you're bonded with. And this is something that you can do often, but we can't do it over Zoom. It won't work. But I wanted to give it to you anyway. So you're going to sit facing another person with whom you're bonded, and there will be no talking. There probably will be some giggling and laughing because it feels funny. So you're going to connect by looking at each other's eyes for a few seconds and match your smiles and level of energy, like in the picture of the baby and teenager. So you're just going to connect, looking eye to eye. Basically, what you're doing is looking left eye to left eye. But you don't, it's not a staring contest. So you connect for just a few seconds. Then you disconnect by looking away for a few seconds. Then you reconnect for a few seconds and synchronize again. And smile. Match your smiles, and this will build joy in your brain. Disconnect, discuss how it felt, and do this often. So you need 2 or 3 people. You can do it with 2 easily, then you can do it with 3, but you have to take turns looking at each other. So I highly recommend this, especially for couples. So let's look for a minute at what we synchronize. We synchronize both joy and quiet. And I have another exercise here. So before we do this, why doesn't everybody just put their hands up above their head? Stretch. Put your arms out. Hit your husband in the nose. Stretch your arms. There you go. All right. Good. So this one's going to be with your eyes closed again, so I don't want anybody to go to sleep. All right, this exercise is not written out. It's a little bit long, but not too long, just a few minutes. So this is a calming exercise, and it's good for yourself. Sometimes I do it before I go to sleep, and sometimes I do it with groups, and sometimes I do it with a person that needs to help get calm. So you're going to close your eyes, and I'm going to guide you. Notice your breathing. Notice your right foot. Notice your left foot. Go Go back to your breathing. See if you can notice your heart beating. Go back to your breathing. Notice a smell that might be in the room. Notice a sound. Go back to your breathing. Notice a window in the room. Go back to your breathing. Ask Jesus where he is with you. And ask Jesus, what do you want me to know? Okay, open your eyes. If you want to jot down anything in your notes, I'll give you a second to do that. So it's real important about synchronizing to know that when we know how to do this, we don't overwhelm other people. It's possible that after this information here, you may start to notice other people who overwhelm other people. Or you might start to notice that you overwhelm people. Because this is a skill, this is a relational skill that's very helpful to know how to synchronize, to know how to come in and be on the same energy level, wavelength. Here's an example that might help you. So let's use a child, for example. So a child is sitting on the floor. A little boy's playing with his cars. And mom comes into the room and she goes over to him and picks him up and kisses him all over his face. Is that synchronizing? No, because he was calm and quiet and she was exuberant and huggy kissy. So that's kind of an example that might help you. So let's look at what happens when we have desynchronization. Desynchronization feels like the discord of an untuned guitar. We feel misunderstood, unloved, alone, afraid, and unwanted, etc. Desynchronization does not feel good. And in this picture on the bottom, I don't know if the face is covered up, but this is one of my grandchildren back when she was about a year old. And my nephew came to visit, and he wanted her to smile. And not only did he smile really big at her, he reached out to touch her. And I don't know if you can see her face. She is not a happy little camper because he is too close when she doesn't know him. So he's not synchronizing. Now, that one little thing right there did not cause a trauma. But if you live in an environment of desynchronization, it's painful and it builds fear bonds, if that's the environment. All right, we're going to do one more thing, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Lockie. So on this this thing right here, I'm going to give you 3 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes, and you're going to write this one. So you'll need a piece of paper and a pen, pencil, and some of you may have done this before. We call it texting with Jesus. And when I say texting, I mean that you're only going to write 1 or 2 sentences. So this is not a place to catch up on your prayer life and journaling, because it's going to be very short. So you're going to take this form and you're going to think of something that makes you feel appreciative or grateful, and write it like this: me to Jesus. Write whatever it is that you feel grateful for, and then listen for his response and write it: Jesus to me. Okay, so just jot that down on your piece of paper: me to Jesus, and leave some space, and then have Jesus to me and leave some space. And so if you want to, you can tap before you start, whatever fits with you. And I'm going to give you about 3 or 4 minutes, and I'm going to do it also. And so then you can share it later with someone.
everyone done with the exercise?
Is everyone enjoying the morning?
So I thought I would share mine as a
Oh,
model.
wonderful. Yes, please.
Yeah, as a model. Okay, I didn't want to interrupt anyone. So this is how we share it, and it's good to share these. So you can do this in a group because you don't have to be looking at, right at someone. Me to Jesus. I'm grateful I could meet these precious people all the way in Miami. Wow, I would never have flown there to do a 3-hour seminar. Jesus to me. I see you there enjoying your time with new people. You are bringing blessings to my people. So I mean, we could take a minute if maybe one or two people want to share theirs.
I was thinking the same thing. If anybody would like to share theirs, please go ahead.
Carlos.
Carlos, you want to share yours? Go ahead.
Yes. Good morning, Barbara.
Morning.
I said to Jesus, I'm learning to trust you. I have to work at this, but I feel your presence. And then Jesus said to me, dear son, I created you to be happy, loved, and joyful. Believe and trust in my truth.
Awesome.
Somebody else would like to share theirs?
Yeah, I'll share. I wrote me to Jesus. I'm thankful for my health, my relationship with my 3 daughters, and the support I get from my siblings, my sisters. And Jesus to me, he accepts me the way I am, and he wants to walk with me even when it hurts. He's with me. That's what I heard. Thank you.
Amen.
Somebody else would like to share? This is so good.
Yeah, this is so good.
Mary?
Go ahead, Samantha.
Mary?
Oh, Mary? Okay, 1 second.
I say to Jesus, thank you, Jesus, for Jose recuperation and healing. And Jesus to me, I thought of him when he was having the chemo. I gave knowledge to the doctors to heal him.
Wow.
Wow. Gee, that was unreal. Thank you.
We're unmuted.
Thank you.
Oh,
Samantha.
I want to go.
Susan.
Okay,
Let
1 second.
Samantha go and
Yeah,
then Susan.
Yeah.
Samantha.
Okay. So you guys listen and confirm if you think it was Jesus talking to me or just my imagination or whatever. I just wrote it like bullet points. When I was thinking of what do I appreciate, so I was like, Jesus, I feel grateful and I appreciate when there's harmony in my family. And then I wrote that Jesus said, a time is coming. And then I asked me, for what? And then Jesus said, more harmony. Mm-hmm. And then I asked him, what about my constant heartache? And then Jesus said, I will satisfy you, Samantha. And then I asked when, and then Jesus said, don't worry.
Oh, yes, absolutely. That's Jesus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You tell her, Miss Barbara. You tell
I'm
her.
telling her right now.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Susan.
Susan.
You're muted. You're muted, Susan. You're muted.
There. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. This has been interesting for me, and I think when I woke up, it was the set of mind frame that I was in, and it's not good.
I can tell you.
when I tried to do this part of the exercise, I should back up because some of the other exercises were revealing to me too. But this one, all I could get was me to Jesus. I'm annoyed with just about everything. And Jesus to me, stay in your lane. Trust me, rest.
Wow.
Amen. That's good. You were honest. And he's reassuring you.
Ramiro.
Yeah. Me to Jesus. Grateful for where I am in my life today and how hard I've worked to get here. Jesus to me, I know it's painful to go back and face the things that hurt you and created chaos in your life, but it is the only way I can help you heal those wounds. Don't worry and stay focused on your healing. I will see you through this and will be with you every step of the way.
Amen.
I just want to say I'm challenged by this because my text was a tweet. Like I just put a peaceful drive, you know, but and I heard him say me too, which is encouraging because sometimes I feel like he's not, you know, we're not on the same page, but it encourages me to go further. So thank you guys for sharing.
A tweet is fine. I like that. I'm gonna put that in my program. Text or tweet.
Susie, he just synchronized with you, didn't he? He just synchronized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Isn't he? He said me too. Cool.
Yeah. All right. It's back to you, Lockie, as whatever you wanted to do next until you get back.
Lucky, can I share mine?
Sure.
Can I share mine too?
Oh, okay.
Sure. No, I think this is a great exercise. I hope you're all enjoying the morning. I'm so, no, and you all keep sharing it. So.
Gigi, go ahead.
Me to Jesus. Thank you for providing us with a vacation time where I could rest. Jesus to me, you are welcome. When you focus on my presence, every day can feel like a vacation. Try it.
I like that.
Oh, wow. And we go with you.
Patty.
Let me say it's close. Okay. I say what is my notes here? Jesus, thank you for my family at Hope4Life Miami. Jesus to me, you are not alone. You are not far from home. I gave you a family and you have a new heart, my heart. Why did you say that? I think that is too familiar in my mind. You are in the middle of me to Jesus, no? So now Jesus to me, you are in the middle of the real people. All my sons and daughters, they are coming close to me. You do not have to do nothing just to be you, because you are a divine treasure. You are in me and I am in you. So what do I have to do today? And Jesus to me say, just relax, enjoy, and go to Sammy's home. Sammy's is my niece son, and he's in love with me, and we have a lot of synchronization. And he's asking for me all the week, so I'm going there.
Cool.
Good, Patty. Enjoy. That's so wonderful. Wow. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. That's so good. Lucky usually doesn't follow or do the exercises.
Never.
He did. He wrote. So I'll share mine. From me to Jesus, my cat, it's been, he's not even 2 years old, but for the last 2 weeks, he nearly died. He's been back and forth and hospitalized for 2 weeks. And it was very stressful for me. So I just said to something I appreciate, me to Jesus, I said, so happy Peter is home. His name is Peter. And Jesus to me, I wanted him back home because it makes me happy to see you happy. So I'm so happy Peter is home. Anyhow, I mean, we do a lot of these things. We have never gone really for training. We've learned it along the way in our healing. And I will say we do the kindergarten version of all this stuff, our best way we can. But to hear it from you, it reinforces, you know, what we've researched, what we've learned, what we've had to put into practice in our homes. And the truth is that it never gets old, you know? It's like, it's constantly evolving, constantly doing. I mean, I'm reading all this, and though we have 3 grown children, we have a 14-year-old at home with us. So it's like, I'm reading all this and I'm thinking, oh my God, she's looking for synchronization. And, you know, like, it's a constant reminder, you know, like it never gets too old, you know? And I don't think we can never get it perfect, but it's constantly there, you know? So I think this is one of the classes I would tell everyone, you're gonna have to go back and listen to it. Because I think every point, I mean, when Bill Thrall came, he called that, he has all these one-liners. Bill Thrall one-liners, that everything he says is like boom, boom, like, oh my goodness. And I think here we're having Barbara Moon one-liners, you know, like everything she's saying. I mean, it's not just like she says all this and boom here, you know, it's like boom, 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 you know. So it's like, wow, how can I do all this? I need to remember this. Oh, I forgot about this. No wonder I've been feeling like this. And especially in times like this, when everything around us is changing. Think about it. We have so many teachers that attend Hope4Life, and they're all so stressed out right now. Some have started school already, some are about to start this week, next week. And they're so overwhelmed with all the changes and having to do now classes via Zoom. And on the other hand, you have parents confused. What's going to happen? How am I going to do this? Parents that are trying to have their children work, and what are they going to do with their children? And let's think about the children. A lot of it is changing for our children, you know, like as they knew it, like they synchronized with their friends when they went to school. They synchronized with their teachers. They're synchronized, and their joy bucket got filled up when they went to school, and, you know, when they came back, and, you know, all these things. And all of a sudden that's taken away. And a lot of us have been locked up at home. We cannot meet the way we regularly meet. So I think this is so tangible to be able to put it into practice in our lives, to be able to synchronize and take under consideration our children, what they're going through, what we are feeling about having to learn new things, how to do things online with them. So I think it's at all levels. And I think this is so wonderful and good, and so good to put it into practice. So I cannot, like, I'm so glad Barbara Moon decided to come and share this with us, you know. So I hope you guys are enjoying taking notes. And well, with that said, Lucky.
We're going to do a couple of housekeeping things. We're going to do a couple of announcements. One of the things, you all know, the regular people, we're 100% donation based. Donation based is not a matter of give us your donations. It's a matter of sharing our gifts with one another. All this costs a lot of money. We do everything for free. We meet with you all one-on-one for free. We give the classes for free, the support groups for free, but all this costs a lot of money. And also Giovanna and me were doing the bills this week or last week, and we realized and we noticed that 2 months later, July and August, the income for Hope4Life is down. And our expenses keep going up. I mean, the more people we see, the more meetings we have, the more we do Zoom, these gracious speakers come. We want to give them generous gifts, not just to be cheap with them. Even though people don't ask, but we want to be very generous. We want to do everything. I mean, whatever you guys need, whatever we have, we share. So we're talking about sharing, we're talking about gratitude, we're talking about graciousness. And I want to share with you the income's down for the last 2 months. But the expenses keep going up. We had to write some checks this week. We never check our balances. We look and it was down. That's how I know. That's how we know. It's taken us 2 months to realize the income has dropped. So like Giovanna loves to say, you're all adults. Gigi, can we put up the thing, please? You're all adults. You all know what you have to do. If you're enjoying, if this is helping you, if this is saving your family, if this is blessing you, just be a blessing. And for the people who cannot give, please don't give. You're welcome. But if you can give and you're only giving $100 when you should be giving 1,000, just do the ratio. Then also ask God why you're like that. But those are just my thoughts. To be gracious, to be grateful, I mean, if Hope4Life's making a difference, and I know you all, a lot of you personally, and some new people I see today, welcome. The new people, you all do what you want. I'm just speaking to the regular ones who a lot of you also, I want to say, and Giovanna says it all the time, you're very generous, and thank you so much for your generosity. You want to say anything?
No, we just appreciate you guys keeping the doors of Hope4Life open. And every time we meet with someone, every time we see a breakthrough, and I know Barbara can testify to this, it's such a great joy when you see someone get something, have a breakthrough in their life. When you begin to see the dynamics of relationships, family relationships beginning to change, it's just so rewarding. And I think that's a big reward for Lucky and I.
Huge.
So to those that do keep the doors open, our doors open, we want to say thank you very much. We have no words. To be able to put no price to a meeting, to be able to put no price to the time we spent with someone, I think it's a gift. And Lucky and I do appreciate that.
That you all supporters who support us allow us to do everything for free, though it costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
Is that what you're trying to
Yeah.
say? Yeah.
So anyways, so these are the different ways you can give. And text giving, you text the amount, you text to that number 45777 with the word hope, and then write the amount. Then you have PayPal, which you go to our website, which is hope4lifemiami.org. Click on donate and it'll take you.
If you go to Hope4Life without the word Miami, you're going to somebody else's website.
Yes, so you have to make sure it says Miami. We live in Miami. We are in Miami. So it's hope4lifemiami.org. Or by Cash App. I find that a lot of people have found that super simple and easy. It's the $sign Hope4Life Miami. Or by mail, when you can mail a check and the address is right there. Hopefully we'll soon we'll be meeting there again. We don't know when yet, but we're working towards that and seeing how things go. But for the moment, we are very grateful to Zoom and all this way technology helps for us to meet. We're grateful for Gigi and Giorgio that help us manage and do all the Zoom meetings. We're not techie at all. Lucky's a little more techie than me. I'm not. I'm old school. But Gigi and Giorgio do an amazing job to keep all this going. So anyhow, thank you again for sharing. Thank you for giving. And like Lucky said, I know also the situation out there is not easy. But
and I think it's the same also, but if anybody needs anything, text me, call me. I mean, yeah. We've been delivering food, we've been delivering paper towels, we've been delivering hand sanitizers, Lysol, all sorts of crazy stuff we've been doing. It's not only give, it's if you need something, and if we can do something, we offer our time to meet with you all for healing. But if we can do more other stuff, it's also our pleasure.
Yeah.
I interrupted you.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I can I can testify to that when I have needed, because I can't find Lysol or I can't find the wipes. I mean, we go to different places, and when we can't find anywhere, we call Lucky. And Lucky shows up with Lysol or with the wipes or whatever we need. It's incredible. So even that, you're in the details. Thank you, Lucky and Joey.
Yeah, but also going back to what I was saying, it's if you cannot give because you're not in the position to give, because sometimes I feel people telling me I haven't been on because right now I'm without a job and I cannot give. That's a lie from the enemy, because if you cannot give, you are more than welcome to be here. And this is why we're here. So if you cannot, do not feel guilty. And just wait. When the moment God provides or you have, I'm sure you'll give and share. But don't let that be a stumbling block for you not to get all these wonderful tools and teachings, because it's not. That's not our heart, and that's not what we're saying. So thank you anyways. So do we have an announcement for next week, Gigi?
Yes, we have a fantastic announcement, and I think Lucky could elaborate on this, but when Lucky brought this book to Hope for Life, Sinners in the Hands of a Loving God, first of all, a lot of the people who have been coming to Hope for Life have heard a very different message in years of being part of church, or even families where we have heard the preaching. I don't remember who preached Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God.
Jonathan Edwards 200 years ago, and most of American Christianity or evangelicalism is based on the teaching of sinners in the hands of an angry God.
Thank you. Yes. So this is kind of like, I think it's revolutionary to start really seeing God as a loving God, because I think we have not been able to see his loving side if we're still living like orphans. And I think all of us have arrived to Hope for Life in an orphan stage. And thank you, Lucky and Jovi, for opening our eyes to all these amazing authors and speakers. So Brian Zand, Pastor Brian Zand, author of Sinners in the Hands of a Loving God, will be coming to Hope for Life next weekend. Yay! I had a 5-minute conversation yesterday as I was talking to him about what he was gonna do so I could do the promotional piece. And he said something that I loved. He said, I'm a really good friend of Brad Jerzak. He and I see the world in a very similar way. And I personally love Brad and Eden Jerzak, and they have been, I think, instrumental in showing us that loving side of God alongside with Lucky and Joey. So I'm really excited. I hope that all of you guys are excited to put in your calendar. I know we record these. I know we have them on Facebook right now. By the way, we're all live on Facebook also. But it's not the same to watch it later than to participate, to ask, to be able to interact with the speakers that are coming. We miss something. So I really encourage you to find the time and put your alarm clock and be part of next week.
Thank you, Gigi, and invite a friend. I mean, I think this is so wonderful. Tell people about it. I hear people complaining, I can't wait for my church to open up. We're not meeting. I feel so alone. I tell people, tell them about, not that we're taking anyone or anything, but tell them about Saturdays. I mean, I think these are all wonderful speakers, and we're all learning so much, and different views, and challenges our thinking, challenges our beliefs, challenges the way we've been doing things. I mean, like, we've taught a lot of this, we talk about a lot of this, but when we hear a different voice, like Lucky right now, hearing Barbara, he was telling me all through the time, like, I still do many of these things. I still feel like some of these things, you know, when you hear it, and he's like, she's convicting me a lot, but it's another voice. You see, it's another voice. He's hearing it from another source, and his heart's being convicted. So Barbara, it's being used as the Holy Spirit this morning in Lucky's heart, you know, like.
Good morning, Holy Spirit.
It's convicting Lucky. So, you know, you never know.
No, I'm very convicted this morning by listening to you, Barbara. I mean, I've been hearing this stuff for at least a decade, if not longer. We teach this stuff, and I'm listening to you, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what a conviction I'm getting, you know? And it's been just because of the last 2 weeks of the way I've been behaving, and I'm like, oh my God. And I've been apologizing to Giovanna for the last 1.5 hours for the way I've been treating her for the last 2 weeks, you know? But so there's conviction even after we've been in this for decades, you know? And so thank you so very much, Barbara. I need you to tell people about your website, about your books and all that kind of stuff, and how they can reach you. Everybody needs another voice. Sorry?
Yeah, and I have something before we turn it back to.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. I wanted to remind everybody there. I see a lot of new faces here today, and perhaps this is your first time on a Saturday class. Usually we give classes, Lucky and Giovanna, and some of us, but mostly Lucky and Giovanna, teach classes on deep inner heart healing from maturity, behavioral and substance addictions, especially behavioral addictions. We talk about our FOOP, family of origin pain. What does a normal dysfunctional family look like, which is all of our families. And we like to go deep on all of these topics because we usually don't get a chance to talk about this in our families, at church, at work, with our friends. So we encourage you to stay tuned because we continue the classes as well. I think we will resume our classes next month. Now, every Tuesday and Thursday, I'm going to share my screen right now. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we have support groups. So I know you have a meeting ID for today, but there's a different meeting ID for Tuesdays and Thursdays. Write it down. We start at 7 and we finish around 9:30. It's awesome to be here on Saturday, but it's even more awesome to be on the support groups because we get to talk to people and share with others what happened in our journal. What did Jesus say when we did the exercises that Barbara was teaching us today? What is keeping us out of our joy center, and why are we behaving the way we're behaving? And it's a place where we can start practicing synchronization, practicing mutuality, practicing speaking out what we're doing in the darkness, and being with people that really love us and support us regardless. So if you're here for the first time today, I invite you to give it a try. Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. And I think that's all I have for announcements today.
Yeah, one more thing about the support groups. Most of us here probably go to church and we're always asked to be part of a small group. Be part of a small group, connect with others. And yes, I mean, that's probably where maybe some relationships will happen. But usually what happens in these groups is very centralized in one person alone dictating to the rest of the group a teaching or something like that. At least that has been my experience. When you come to the support groups, you're going to get anything but one person telling you what to do or teaching you anything. These support groups are the key, at least it has been for me, everybody, to understanding everything that goes on within me and within my relationship with Christ and God. Without these groups, none of this beautiful stuff that happens on Saturdays will truly stay within, because we tend to attend a seminar and then we leave the seminar and we stay with it for a week. We're full of the Spirit, so to say, but then everything slowly fades away. These support groups are amazing because it just keeps us totally connected to what goes on here. So if you want to have your mind blown by the exercises that take place, and by exercises, I don't mean do this, do that. It's your own working of your own mind and the conviction of the Holy Spirit that makes you say or absorb the things that are being shared in these groups that makes the difference. So I invite you to come Tuesdays or Thursdays. No one is going to force you to do anything. I guarantee you, ladies, guys, that once you go in there and you see the dynamics that take place in these groups, you'll be hooked. You will want to come back. So I hope to see you there either Tuesday or Thursday. I know I'll be there.
Thank you, Giorgetto.
Yep.
By the way, Barbara, that was my husband, Giorgio.
I figured that out earlier.
Hi,
Well,
Barbara.
thank you, Giorgio. And I think it's also the support groups is a continuation, like, of the classes on Saturday or what we learn. And a lot of the time, then we take cues from what we learn. Like this Thursday or Tuesday, we'll be asking, so what was your text with Jesus? Because maybe not everyone's able to share. And, you know, and this is like in one of the slides, it was practice. Practice makes it better. You know, it's funny, Samantha was saying, tell me please if I'm wrong or not. Was that Jesus talking to me? And absolutely, I was listening, and immediately Barbara was like, absolutely, that's him, you know? And we need that affirmation. We need that encouragement from one another, you know? So, no, you're not crazy. It was him. He was there with you, telling you that. So anyhow, let's continue to enjoy. I think I am having a great time. And Barbara, it's all back to you. And like he has said, share about your books and things like that.
Because, you know, Giovanna and me are also certified counselors, but we also meet with people all day. But also I want them to know about you a little bit, because I know you're also a counselor and you have things going on. So your website, your books, yeah. Is it our volume on?
Oh, okay. Are you going to do that later, or am I ready? Okay.
Okay. Okay, she didn't hear us, I think.
So Barbara, Lucky has said if you could share a little bit about your website and some of the things you do and your books before we.
Oh, he wanted me to. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought, okay. My website is barbaramoonbooks.com, one word. barbaramoonbooks.com. It has blogs, and all of my books are pictured there. You have to scroll through them. If you click on one, it will tell you what the book's about, and then if you want to buy one, it takes you to Amazon. The books are all on Amazon. I think almost all of them are also on Kindle, so you can get Kindle and paperbacks. I have two or three that sort of stand out. The Joy-Filled Relationships has all of the material that I'm sharing today, plus everything else. It's pretty much comprehensive of what Life Model teaches. And I have a book for parents of teenagers that I think is really good. It has stories from a couple of moms who have applied the things that we're talking about today for their teenagers. And I have a new book that I just wrote during the quarantine, where I met with my 4 of my grandchildren and 5 other young people every single night for 40 nights. And we met to keep them from being depressed, and they were just so upset about being locked down, because they're at the age where that's the last thing they want to do is be locked down. And so I asked them would they meet with me, and they said yes. If they said no, that was fine. So we ended up with 4 grandchildren and 5 other young people. And so we ended up meeting 40 straight nights. And so I called them nuggets. What we were doing, I told the kids, we'll only stay on the computer for 30 minutes total. And we would do like a nugget, and then we would do the Emmanuel prayer that we did. I did the exact same thing with them, the one where we did the good memory. That's what we did every single night with them. And so I turned it into a book. It's called 40 Nuggets for Life. And people are using it with their children. We're doing a group a separate group with our group on GroupMe where we're just going through the nuggets together. So, and then I have one, my other book that I like to recommend is Reframing Your Hurts, is what to do with emotional pain. So there's a bunch of other ones there too, but those are the ones, the main ones.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Thank you. We really appreciate you sharing your work. And now we all know the story behind the 40 nuggets. So it just makes all that, when you read it, more personal, you know, like, oh, I know why she did this, you know, and who she was with and where it came from. So thank you. Thank you.
It's been really fun because when we started, I thought, well, you know, they might do this for a week. When we got to about the 35th week, night, excuse me, I realized that they were starting to go out more. And so I said, okay, let's end with 40 because that's a good Bible number. So
that's good. Thank you.
That's how we got through the quarantine. All right, we're changing topics again. Now we're going to look at returning to joy. So we call this rupture and repair. Rupture meaning that we've gotten upset with somebody, we're kind of in conflict. And so this is another definition that I want you to note because it's a little bit different than, a little bit different idea if you've never heard it. So we're going to call returning to joy means that I'm reconnecting with someone who hurt me. So we were glad to be together, something happened, and we got upset, and now we want to get back to being glad to be together again. We use another idea with this, that we can stay connected and relational even during a negative emotion. So we didn't actually leave being in joy, but we have the negative feelings. And so we want to stay connected with our heart open even during negative emotions. This is a skill that can be learned, and it does take some maturity. When we avoid negative emotions because we haven't learned how to return to joy, this is what leads to addictions and relationship problems. So sometimes we think that we're doing ourselves and other people a favor because we're avoiding this negative emotion, but that is not true. We want to learn how to feel the negative emotion and stay relational during it. When we know how to return to joy, we're not as afraid of negative emotions because we know that it's going to be okay. So relationships are about rupture and repair. This is another thing you can put on your refrigerator or your mirror if you want to, because until I learned this, my philosophy was I better keep peace at all costs. I didn't know that relationships were about rupture and repair because I didn't know how to repair very well. So we don't have to be afraid of the ruptures when we know how to repair. I have a story here about one of my grandchildren. She was in a difficult place in her life, and I was being the person to help her. And I found out that she had done something that upset me, but she didn't know that I knew about it. And so I was over at her house on this particular day. We were in the kitchen, and she said something, and I said something back to her that was a little bit too heavy and too strong because of what I had found out. And she got upset and stomped her foot and went over to the sink and stood there. And I said and so I was just quiet for a minute, and then I said to her, I'm not going anywhere. It's okay that you're upset with me, and I want you to forgive me for what I said. And so I just sat there, and she stood over by the sink. And then in a minute, she came back over to the table where I was. And I said, you know, will you forgive me? And she said, yes. So I asked her for a hug, and she said, okay. And then in a minute, she put her arms around me as well as mine around her. And so we had returned to joy. And that took just maybe 2 minutes. So we're going to do another quick exercise to help ourselves realize that emotions only last about 90 seconds. A lot of people don't believe this, and this is one of the reasons that we tend to avoid pain, is because we think if we let ourselves feel this, it's never going to go away. I'm not going to be able to stop it. So I'm going to guide you on this one again. It just takes a minute and a half or so. So I want you to close your eyes. Okay, I want you to close your eyes and think about a time when you were embarrassed or humiliated, not the worst thing that ever happened, but something that was embarrassing or humiliating. And see if you can feel that feeling. And as long as you're feeling that feeling, when you stop feeling it, put your finger up. Now, I'm not going to be able to see you, so I'm just going to tell you when the time's up. But if you're just thinking about it, that doesn't count. You have to be feeling that feeling of embarrassment. And I'm going to watch the clock. "30 seconds. "60 seconds. "90 seconds. Now you can open your eyes. So you can see by the seconds that I called out, if you were able, you probably put your finger up or your hand up 30 seconds, maybe 45. Most of the time when I do this, I've never had anybody go the whole 90 seconds. So it has to be feeling it, not just thinking about it. All right, let's look at some responses that we can have for emotions for ourselves and other people. This is another very important relational skill that will change your relationships, especially with the people that you're with a lot. Validation. So this is not most people's first impulse when someone's upset. So validation is when we use a very soft, kind voice tone that says, I can see this is really hurting you, or that's hard, or I can see how you're feeling, things like that. It has nothing to do with trying to fix the person. It's only validating that they're feeling what they're feeling. Now, sometimes we will validate feelings that are not true. The person might be feeling something that really isn't true. You know how your kids come and say, I hate you, mommy? when they're little. They can at least say that at least one time. Well, that's what they're feeling, but it's not really true. But we're still going to validate. We want to validate whatever the person is feeling. We can name the feeling if we know what it is. Then we want to comfort. I'm here for you. How can I help? Some of the ways that we comfort are just with voice tone, safe touches, our body language, our face. We're staying calm. And we're giving them an alternate perspective after we've validated and comforted. And this is the thing we want to avoid. We want to avoid fixing by minimizing the feelings, giving advice, telling them the truth, giving them a Bible verse, giving them a book, giving them a video, telling them to watch a video. Now I want to talk about this for another minute because this is one of the life-changing skills, along with being glad to be together and synchronizing. And when we can learn to validate and comfort instead of fix, it will change the dynamics very highly. So here's an example of, well, let me say it this way. I think all of us can think of an example when we either, maybe we lost a loved one, there's a divorce going on, somebody got cancer, maybe you're just disappointed because you can't go to school. You're not able to do all the things that we can't do right now. And we tend to, when we notice the person feeling a negative emotion, we tend to give advice. So you can probably think of phrases that have been said to you like, well, you just need to trust God, or you need to have more faith, or it's not really that bad, or somebody quoted a verse to you, maybe a miscarriage, anything like that. So we want to validate and comfort instead of fixing. So now we're going to look at the big 6 emotions. These 6 emotions are common to all cultures everywhere, and they're hardwired into our brain. And we're supposed to learn this return to joy skill between 12 and 18 months. And so the pictures that I have to illustrate these emotions are babies in that age range, because that is when the ideal time to learn it. It can be learned as an adult, but it takes a little bit longer and some work. And so these are the 6 emotions: anger, fear, sad, disgust, hopeless despair, and shame. And so we're going to look at a definition for each one of these in a minute, and then talk a little bit about each one. When this skill is missing of return to joy, it causes relationship problems. We have the ruptures and disconnections, and they don't get repaired. Sometimes we use the phrase, it gets swept under the rug. So it's just, we act like it didn't happen. This is very common. Because our brains are wired for joy and peace and belonging, we don't like it when we have these disconnections. And so we are going to substitute beeps for the lack of joy. These are addictions. I heard one of y'all said behavioral addictions and substances, and that's exactly a good way to say it. The first 4 are behavioral things: behaviors, events, experiences, people, and then substances. These beeps take over after a while, and they bring more false joy than we get from people. They're not really joy, but it feels like they are, and so they're a substitute for relational joy. We're supposed to learn to return to joy in a joy-filled relationship, and the ideal age is 12 to 18 months. We can't learn this skill without being with somebody who knows the skill, just like the synchronizing. These 6 emotions are involuntary and nonverbal. They're in the right brain fast track, and they happen without us thinking about them or choosing them. So an example of that would be if you stepped off of the sidewalk in front of a truck, you would feel fear. You wouldn't think, I see a truck, that truck is about to hit me. You would just instantly feel the fear. So it doesn't do any good to choose against these. And a lot of us have been taught to choose against the feelings. So that's another whole lesson, which I'm not going to talk about today, but that's good to go away and think about. It happens too fast for us to make a choice. We've already looked at that these 6 emotions generally last about 90 seconds. I do want to throw in here, if you're in grief, I'm not implying that your grief will be over in 90 seconds. The way I look at it is, if I'm in grief, which I've been in, I might cry for about 30, 40, 90 seconds. I might blow my nose, take a breath, and cry some more. So this is just for regular, the 90 seconds is more like regular feelings. Grief can go on for a long time. It's very painful to be out of joy. It's one of the worst pains we can feel, that we want to be with somebody that we are not able to connect with or aren't connected with. And we want to remember that relationships are about rupture and repair, not about keeping peace at all costs. So let's look at each emotion with it. I'm giving you a very simple definition of each emotion because it's to fit a baby around 12 to 18 months. The definition that we use for anger, I'm about to lose something important to me. Fear, I want to get away, something bad is about to happen. Sad, something or someone important to me is lost. Disgust, something or someone is not giving me life here. The reason I have all these adorable pictures is because when Dr. Wilder was making his first presentation on the emotions, he asked me to take pictures of my grandchildren I was living with. So we kept the camera nearby. And hopeless despair, I don't have the resources or the time or the capacity to solve this, and it feels like I'll never get back to joy. So this hopeless despair, a regular emotion, is not depression. It's about, I can't fix this. I don't have what it takes to fix this. And then last is shame, and we're going to talk about shame a little bit more than the other ones. So shame is, the definition that we use is, I'm not bringing you joy and you're not glad to be with me. So sometimes I say this really funny thing about shame. I'm not glad to be with you, but I'm going to be glad to be with you while I'm not glad to be with you, so that we can return to being glad to be together. So the very definition of joy is the opposite. I mean, the definition of shame is the opposite of joy. I'm not glad to be with you, but in order to return to joy, we have to be glad to be together when we're not glad to be together. So this is a brain skill that is learned from someone who knows how to do it. So I want to talk for a little bit about two kinds of shame. This could be a very long 3-hour lesson on its own, but I think just want to touch on it for you to get the feel, and I think it'll be really helpful. This is a very common cause of rupture. So there's two kinds of shame, and I want you to write this down. There's two kinds. When you hear the word shame, most of us, when we hear that word, we only think about the bad shame, the toxic shame. But there is good shame, there is healthy shame. Toxic shame says you are bad, or it says I am bad. Good shame says what you did was bad. One of the ways, and I think that y'all probably talk about this in some of your classes, but I'm going to go over it anyway. When we have children, this is an example of two different ways to say the same thing, but one is toxic and one is healthy, and that would be to say, we don't want any liars in our family. We're not going to have any liars in our family. Versus saying, we're not going to have any lying in our family. We don't allow lying in our family. One is about your personhood, and one is about your behavior. When we don't know how to return to joy from shame, we may hear toxic shame, even when the person is not giving us toxic shame. If we hear toxic shame or the person is giving us toxic shame, then we often results are self-justifying, defending, attacking, or pouting. So I always like to throw in that some people attack and some people withdraw. The people that withdraw and pout and put up their walls are being just as hurtful as the people who attack. But we look at the people who are quiet and say that they're better. We don't know the difference. So we want to learn to give and receive good shame messages. A healthy, good shame message communicates what you are doing does not make me glad to be with you. So we want to correct it so we can be close. So a few months ago, several people asked me in one of my groups if I would give them an example of receiving a good shame message. So I asked Jesus to remind me, and I had two remembrances come to my mind. These were very short, but it showed me how I had grown, because previously, say 5-6 years ago, I probably would have gotten my feelings hurt. But these are the two stories. My daughter, Jody, I was out at her house. I don't remember what we were doing, but she said to me, "Mom, you're hurrying me." And I went, "Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I'll slow down." Well, would not have been my response years ago. And then the other one was my friend was working on my computer. She's the one that does my website, and she was here at my house working on my computer. And I was just chattering away, asking her questions and blah, 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 blah. And she looked over at me and she said, I can't do two things at once. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. So I stopped chattering and let her concentrate. Okay, so those are really mild, everyday type of comments that we make to each other. But we're going to look now at that plus what we might do in a group. So here are some other ways to give a good shame message. First, let's look at what constitutes a healthy shame messages. These are spoken in a kind and gentle tone. They have the goal of being close. So if the definition is, I don't like being with you right now, the goal is that we want to be close again. They are about helping each other act like our people act. What's it like God's people in this particular instance? And they're about behavior, not identity or personhood. So here's a couple of quick ways, easy ways that Dr. Wilder has come up with. It's not like us to blank, we blank. And in these, we're using the plural, us and we. So it's not like us to hit our sister, we are kind. It's not like us to yell at somebody, we speak kindly. It's not like us to defend ourselves, we are humble. So those are just some examples. And then you can shorten it even more to we don't blank, we blank.
It's the same one. It's that one.
Gigi, I think you have to mute everybody because somebody's unmuted.
Mm-hmm. So I want to add here that learning about giving good shame messages is not a mandate to go around correcting everybody. We want to be spirit-led and learn how to do it gently so that the person grows. It's easier to do this with our children, our little children. It's harder to do it with teenagers. Sometimes we need to not do too much correcting with teenagers. But with children, this is how we're teaching them to be a human, to get along in the world, is we're giving them healthy shame. All right, let's look at some ways that we can do the return to joy. How can we resolve these ruptures relationally? Because remember that joy means we're glad to be together, and this is all relational. So a non-relational way would be to give a lecture. That's not relational. So how are we going to do this relationally? Very, very, very important skill that the lady in this picture came up with several years ago, and she called it practice the pause. And we are calling this a brain skill that you can learn to do. This is what I was talking about earlier when I said if you get upset, you want to disengage and take a break. So we want to practice the pause. Sometimes we even put our fingers over our lips because we need to cool down and get our relational circuits on before we talk. We're going to be sharing the feelings and synchronize and validate. We want to be glad to be together. We communicate this with comfort and joy and touch and voice tone. We want to be careful to separate the behavior and the personhood. What you did is different than who you are, and I'm not going to attack who you are. We're going to talk about what we did. we're going to listen and restate until we understand where the other person's coming from. This does not mean that we're trying to convince them that we are correct, that our side is right. We're trying to understand them. This is part of the mind sight that we talked about, or that we're going to talk about on the next one, but when we were doing synchronizing. We care and respect the other's perspective. Sometimes we have to agree to disagree. Sometimes we realize that one person has a preference. It's not the same preference that I have, but it's a negotiable preference. We use a calm tone, and we see that the other person's not acting like him or herself, rather than accusing, blaming, and correcting. This has really helped me. This one right here has really helped me to realize that person's not acting like themselves right now, instead of just blaming them, putting them down. We model how we act like ourselves in this feeling. If you're doing this with a person who doesn't know how to do it, they're going to be watching how you handle that feeling. And sometimes people will upset you so they can see how you handle that feeling, especially if you're in ministry and you're helping other people to grow. Sometimes they'll maybe subconsciously get you upset so they can see how to handle that feeling. And then it's real important to tell stories of how we return to joy. Stories are very helpful, and I encourage you on Zoom, stories are the best nonverbal thing we can do to help each other. When we tell stories of how we used to do this, now we do this. I used to be this way, now I'm this way. I did this and God showed me that. So we tell lots of stories in the time frame. All right, this is a brain order for resolving conflict that's based on James 1:19, the verse that says, "Be quick to hear and slow to speak and slow to anger." So I think this is a good verse about practicing the pause. So we can learn to be quick to hear. And I didn't teach you all the brain levels today, but this fits the 5 brain levels that we talk about in joy-filled relationships. The first thing is to see the person's face, be with them, and remember the relationship. That's about love and attachment. Second, we're going to calm our fears, calm ourselves. Realize we're not alone, God is with us. That's the second part of our brain level, the amygdala. And the third thing is to use mind sight to understand what's going on. Mind sight is when you are reading the other person. You're reading their face, you're reading their body language. This is about synchronizing. And then God's sight is when we ask Jesus to show us how he sees the other person that we're having conflict with. That's God's sight. And then this is our joy bucket place in our brain. What is it like me to do after I see their perspective? So now we're getting ready to do something. And then the one that we usually do first, needs to be last, is what am I going to say? That's the left side of our brain. So we want to remember the relationship, get calm, understand what's going on with them, what's it like me here, and now what am I going to say? So one of the things that we want to be growing in is how to be a gentle responder, a gentle protector.
Barbara, before we continue, Gigi, was there someone that had their hands raised?
Yes, Nancy, I think you had your hand raised. If you want to unmute yourself and ask your question. I don't think she can hear me or.
Okay, so maybe afterwards if she's back on. So let's continue. Sorry, Barbara.
Okay, I just made a mark on my screen. I don't know how I made it. I have no earthly idea what I did. Okay, so let's just look at some more tips. And then we're almost finished. We got one more exercise and then two that I'm probably just going to give you the slides on so that we can do questions and answers.
I'm sorry, this is Nancy. I think I made that mark when I was trying to get the microphone on.
That's okay.
Thank you. I just wanted to respond to how wonderful the texting with Jesus was. That's what I had raised my hand for.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we can learn to share a mind with God in real time so that we can respond as he would. Now this is faster than choosing, so our brain has to be trained to respond, to share this mind with Jesus and respond as he would. This is what we call being transformed into the image of Christ. It happens by training the right side of our brain. What does he see in this situation and how does he see the other person? I have actually asked Jesus in particular moments, how do you see this person? I've asked him sometimes when you're in, like maybe even you're at church and somebody bugs you or you don't even know them, but they just kind of bug you. I've said, Jesus, how do you see this person? And after he told me how he saw them or just gave me a sense of it, it took away all those feelings. What does he want me to know? We're going to use that question all the time. And then retrain the fast track and community with other people with whom I have attachment, love, and share a mind. This is what y'all are doing on your support groups and your Saturdays. I really like what I've heard from this ministry. All right, we're going to do another exercise, and this time you need your appreciation moment that you wrote down at the beginning of the class. So go find your appreciation name. Mine is Pink Tree. This is a picture of my first appreciation moment that I wrote down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to guide you again. And so I'm going to ask you to go to a negative emotion and don't make it the worst one because you may be by yourself and we can't help you. Okay, so just get a mild negative feeling that you've had that's real for you. So I'm going to take you back and forth from your from different emotions to your appreciation moment. Okay, so let's tap our chest, take a deep breath, close your eyes. Okay, start with your appreciation name. Go to that moment where you made that. Feel it in your body. Now think of something sad, not the saddest thing, just something that's happened that's sad, but not the worst. See if you can feel that in your body. Now go back to your appreciation name. See if you can feel that in your body. Now think of something disgusting, something yucky. See if you can feel that in your body. Go back to your appreciation name. Now think of something that it kind of bugs you. It's like a pet peeve, makes you feel a little grumpy and angry. See if you can feel that. Now go back to your appreciation name. Now think of something that's fearful, but not the worst thing you can think of. See if you can feel that. Now go back to your appreciation moment. Ask Jesus, what does he want you to know? And you can open your eyes when you're ready. Okay, I don't know if you were able to go back and forth. I hope that you were, and I hope you could feel it in your body. I had a lady tell me one day in my group that when we did this exercise that she actually felt her brain change. She actually felt something that showed her how to get back to joy from these feelings. So the only thing I have left, Lucky, is one more written practice, but I think it will take too long. So I think I would just like to put it up and let everybody take a picture of it. I'll walk them through it. It's another texting, but it's a little bit long. And then I have one that's journaling, and it takes about 20 minutes. So, but I wanted to make it available to y'all.
Thank you.
These, let me show you these. This one is from, oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry. I had a summary. Let me do this real quick. These are the things that I see that we've covered that I want you to remember. The definition and importance of joy. The importance of synchronizing and sharing a mutual mind. Your relational circuits. Are they on, and how to get them back on? If that's the only thing you go away with, it'll be life-changing. Appreciation. Return to joy. validation and comfort. If that's another one that's very life-changing, because if when you start validating people instead of trying to fix them, it highly improves the relationship. And then we've done a bunch on Emmanuel prayer.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll give you a second to, if you want to get those down. Okay, now this next, this is another similar to the texting with God, and it's from Jim Wilder's Pandora Problem and the workbook. And you just do the same thing. You start with, Dear God, I'm thankful for. You listen for his response. And then the difference in this one is you're going to ask him, when has someone felt like an enemy to me this week? And then what do you want me to know about loving them?
So Pandora Problem is Jim's latest book, right?
No, he's done 2 since the Pandora.
Oh, since then.
Pandora's the one about narcissism.
Right. Okay.
And then Renovated is about transformation, and the other half of the church is about transformation and narcissism. Okay, so that's an exercise that you can do, and if you do these occasionally, even in your support group, it'll help people. These are, things to do, not just to think about and talk about. And then this one is a long one. This one takes about maybe 15 minutes, but I wanted you to have it, and this is from the book Joyful Journey. So you write something grateful, me to Jesus, or I usually end up writing something that's bothering me. Then you write the following that you hear: I, Jesus, see you. I, Jesus, hear you. I, Jesus, understand how big it is. I, Jesus, am glad to be with you, and I can do something about it. So this is a good exercise to do when you have a little more time. You can do them in groups and then have 2 people read them to each other if you're in person. Or you could have people read them out loud as well.
So like, can you give like a little example, Barbara, how,
Okay, I can just do it in my head, I think. After a while, you'll have this memorized. So I might say, Jesus, I'm thankful for, well, I'm going to use something that my daughter's been sick and she's well. Jesus, I'm thankful that my daughter is doing so well right now. Then Jesus might say, I see you sitting there at your computer in your pink shirt. I hear that you're glad that Jody is better. I understand how big it is because of how painful it was when she was sick, and how big it is that she's doing well and she can be with her kids. And I'm glad to be with you now, and I was glad to be with you when she was sick. And I can do something about it by giving you a good relationship with her now and having time to enjoy her. Is that helpful? Okay, but you would write it.
Okay.
And this comes from, I think it's Exodus 8, where, and I'll have to look it up while we're getting ready for questions. So let me see what else I had on here. So I got questions, and then if you want to take a picture of this is some of my resources. Let me see if I can find that Exodus verse.
I think we have to bring her back.
Yeah, you probably have that. I think it's Exodus 8. I always forget. Yeah, I can't find it real quick. All right, so I'm ready for whatever y'all want to do for the rest of the time and how long, and I'm going to unshare if everybody got a picture of this that wanted it.
Okay.
Wow, Barbara.
Oh,
Wow.
thank you so much. I think this was so incredible. We've gotten so many messages as the class has gone on of people saying I wish I would have known this before. Why did I not know this before? And these are just practical tools, like I told everyone. But before we continue, after the break, Don Rafa, you were supposed to ring the bell. You never rang the bell. When
I didn't want to interrupt anything with the bell.
What's the bell for?
when we when we meet in person, we go after we do the sharing or the gift or donation for Hope4Life, then we go in a 10-minute break. And people are so excited to talk, be together, that it takes so long for everyone to get back. And sometimes we have another half of a class to give and a lot of material. And we start ringing the bell like a little school, you know, but some people get super annoyed because then it's gling, 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 but nobody's listening. Nobody goes back. So a few weeks ago, or everyone's been saying, we missed the bell. So we took it to my dad. He's the one with the bell right now, and because he's the one that rings it. So
ring it a few times, Rafael, really loud and clear, and sound everyone crazy.
Well, I was told that there was not to be a break voiced, because everybody would go away and not come back.
Oh, that's true. We haven't been breaking in Zoom, but
Yeah,
when we meet live,
yeah.
we try to break for 10 minutes, and it ends up to be 30 minutes because everyone doesn't even care. The bell's driving everyone mad, but they still won't stop talking. You know?
But anyway, so that was the bell, and I said like, oh, we forgot to ring the bell. But anyhow, so we've been getting texts, people, I wish I knew this, and you know, but I just think it's never too late. I think, I mean, it's never too late. We wherever we are at, we can begin to put things into practice. We missed doing this with our children when they were little. We now can do it with them, even as grown-ups and as adults or teenagers. And then our grandkids will come, and we can start with our grandkids. And I think life, it's a cycle, it continues, you know? So does anyone have any questions? Would anyone would like to ask?
Hello. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't. There we go. Hi. Thank you so much, Barbara, for all your insights. It's been wonderful. Like Joanna says, we just learn more and more and more each time we put our ears to listen. One of the things that you spoke about is, you know, the return to joy. And when you said that, you talked about being 12 to 18 months when you receive that. So what happens if when you're receiving that from that person that's the caretaker in your life, that person is not there? So you're grabbed away from that joy. So how do you return to that if that happens to you at that early stage when you're supposed to be receiving that, but you don't?
That's a very good question. Joy can be built anytime, at any age. You can learn to learn all of these skills from anyone who knows them. It doesn't matter how old you are. That's what's the good news. So probably what you're learning in your groups here is that you need some healing from the fact that you did not get what you needed. If you're doing the maturity skills, then you're learning what you didn't get. It doesn't have to be the parents. When you're a baby, it could be a grandparent. You could get joy from a teacher at school or a coach. It's anytime anybody's glad to be with you helps that joy to get built. So it can be learned and be done no matter what age. Is that what you were asking?
Yes, and then the second part of that, the second part of the question is, I've always heard that joy comes from the Lord and happiness comes from the world around us. So how do you feel about that? How do you put that into what you just said to me? If you don't have the Lord, then how can you receive that joy?
Okay, we are talking about relational joy and how the brain perceives relational joy. So it can be any relationship where someone's glad to be with you will help your brain and help your heart as well. So when I look at the verses that talk about the joy of the Lord, sometimes I substitute the word presence, because if joy means that someone's glad to be with me, then it means that the Lord is glad to be with me. His presence means he's glad to be with me. And there's two of us, which we have to have two. And so I don't think we have to be saved to have joy, to have relational joy. It's not going to be the same as if we're saved, but we don't have to be saved to have somebody to be glad to be with us.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I wanted to say something.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Gilbert, and so I wrote this down while we were doing all the things, and I basically put that some of the sections were making me feel extremely emotional, and I actually got very upset, and it really upset me, because information is so good, and I felt upset that I wasn't privy to something like this, like such a long time ago. I feel like, I get it. I'm maybe being a little judgmental of myself, my past, and I'm doing the had I known thing. But I just feel like if I would have been able to know this, much sooner, I would have, I might have been able to love people a lot better than I did, and I got to a point where I was angry even with God for a moment, because he didn't put it in my path sooner, but then, you go through the thought, right, of, he knows the best mix of what I need in my life and the experiences. So I just am so appreciative of all these techniques and things. And I'm for sure looking forward to when the video is out, because I really want to go back through and really do a little bit more of a better note taking and deep dive for sure. But while you were doing the class, we had an incident that happened in the house, and there hasn't really been that many lately because of a lot of the stuff I've been doing at Hope4Life and my family as well, that things have lessened. But an incident did occur. It was dumb, it was simple, but I started using the techniques, like as you were talking about them when the thing came up. I was like, I had already taken some notes, and I said, let me go ahead and try some of these right now. And sure enough, I started noticing, with my wife, that it was working. And so then I was in a lot better mood, and I was seeing things very differently, because the relationship is worth more than the problem, So then,
Oh,
sorry. And so,
do you use, Gilbert?
say that again.
Which of the techniques do you put into practice?
The one where you connect and look at each other with your left eye, and that whole thought process, where we look at each other and then we match each other, synchronize our smiles. I tried that one with my wife, and we did it, and it really was. I mean, we were already in a good place, her and I, but it made it better. Any tensions that there were with my son and stuff in the house, it kind of lessened it here, even with us. So then I told her, I kind of smiled and said, you know what, let me ask Elijah if he wants to come and try it. So I went and I brought him over, and I didn't tell him what it was because, I was like, you want to try something that I learned? And he said, sure, I'll try it, and because I had just had a conversation with him about, some mess that he had left here. And so then we decided to try it. And sure enough, like after that was done, I asked him, I was like, how are you feeling? He's like, I feel good. I was like, as opposed to earlier, like, what's the difference? He's like, no, I feel good. I feel good in my head, here. And I'm like, wow. And then I was like, wow, okay. So it really did work. And for me, I just, again, I was like, oh, I wish I would have known this stuff. You know, my son's 19 now, and the other one's 21 and getting married. So it's like, I feel like I did so much damage. It's like if I would have known this stuff, I would have been able to utilize it. And I'm appreciative and I'm grateful to you. And thank you so much. Also, Lucky Divana, for bringing Barbara here. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to add something to that, Gilbert. First of all, everybody's going to feel the regret. That's just normal. We have to forgive ourselves and, you know, start over. And so another tip when you're doing the eye to eye, think about good thoughts towards the person that you're doing it with, and they'll show up on your face. What you're thinking will show up on your face. All right, good. Thank you. That's awesome testimony.
Good. Carolina, do you have a question? Were you raising your hand earlier?
Nope. Thank you, but nope, no questions. Everything's perfect. I'm loving it. I'm just loving it. Oh, I went like this because I also want to see the video again and really process it, because this is like a ring on a finger. Is that the correct expression I'm looking for? Yeah? You know what I mean, right?
Anillo al dedo.
Yeah, it's like, dang, you know, like the cherry on the top to many things that are happening this week. So I'm just raising my hand saying, yes, I'm one of those that's going to see the video again and really dedicate precious time to do the homework and the different exercises in a more profound and more present than I just did today.
Well, good, Carolina. That's
And don't forget, if any of you forget any of the stuff Barbara spoke about, it's on her website. Go to her website. Don't be shy, guys. Go
and
to
the
her.
video is going to be
And
out.
the video is going to be out.
And the books.
And the books. And
so, yes. You know, Carolina, Barbara is watching you from Spain, you know? So
Carolina's from Spain?
Oh, she's in Spain.
Oh, in Spain. Oh, that used to be on my bucket list.
Well, now you have a house. You can come visit me. Yeah. We can do wonderful things together with the help of Hope4Life.
Yeah, I speak Spanish.
That's great.
Always wanted to go to Spain, but
well, now you have a house where I'll receive you. You have a place to stay for sure, and I'm not just saying it.
Cool.
It's spoken from my heart.
Thank you. That's so cool. So now you have a place to go to in Spain, Barbara. So now you're getting. Right. Does anybody else would like to share? Has a question to ask?
I'll share. Hi, Barbara. Really appreciate the things that you you know, brought to us today. One of the things that really stuck out for me is practice to pause, cool down, sharing the feelings, and synchronize and validate the feelings. Be glad to be together. Yeah, because I'm a dad that's raising 3 girls, and it gets challenging sometimes because each one of them have a different personality, and I'm really glad that I was here to hear everything that you shared with us today. And I'm gonna put it to use. I'm gonna practice it with when I communicate with them and when we're dealing with different challenges. So just communication. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Colin. Yes, Susan.
Before she went into the summary of topics, there was an exercise that she did, and I have been frantically taking notes, and I think this is part of my frustration this morning. But I think it was an exercise of appreciation and return to joy. Mm-hmm. And I had this download, and it was, you are loved, you are appreciated, you are your own barrier. I need healing.
So at the end, when I asked Jesus to tell you what he wanted you to know, at the end of that, was that what you got? Cool. Can't fix something we don't know to fix.
What did you say, Barbara?
I said we have to know what needs to be fixed before we can
Fix it.
work on it. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Susan, for sharing.
Oh, I love it, Gigi.
I synchronize. So does anybody would like to share something, ask a question? This is your time to ask and say, don't keep it. There's nothing too small, too dumb, too silly to ask, you know?
Well, I wanted to share something, Barbara, which I knew when I saw your video at the beginning when we were communicating. I told Barbara that I felt like this flutter in my heart, like this joy, like wow, as if I could recognize her, although I've never met you before. And what I was sensing is that you mentioned at the beginning that when we're little, if we haven't been taught to deal with these negative emotions, if we haven't had the joy, it's we can still learn it. And growing up, there was a lot of anxiety around me, just anxious people, anxious grandma, very loving, extremely loving grandma, but also a lot of anxiety and fear and worry and anxiety in the womb while I was in the womb. So I have been in the past 6 months, like Pastor Russell tells me, I'm getting a PhD in fear management. It's been really hard. And I could connect today in a more clear way how every time there was joy, there was also fear. Fear was never removed. And I've had a very hard time. It's taken me many years. Lucky and Giovanna have been so patient with me because I've always had joy with a side order of guilt and a side order of fear and a side order of despair. And today, seeing that it's not just spiritual, that it's not just emotional, that I could actually do something to my brain with these exercises, just added another layer, because like Susan said, I need healing. We all need healing. But there's more, like there's always more. Like today you showed that there's more ways to actually tap into that. I guess it's neuroplasticity, I think. That it sounds nice, but I don't think I had really understood it until we put it into practice today. So thank you.
When the thing that I said about making a list of 10 appreciation moments and doing that move up towards 5 minutes a day, 3 times a day, that when it sounds like you were set, it happens around 18 months that your brain decides what normal is, and yours was fear. And that can retrain, literally change your brain. It's not just words, it's literal. So
thank you.
I think, Barbara, we're going to need to bring you for a weekend to Miami. I don't know why. Also, I think maybe we can do another class soon, maybe on neurotheology.
You mean mainly on the brain?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, not only the brain, 3 hours, but I think that could be a big part of it, because I think Ileana asked a good question earlier. I don't know if she's still there. And everyone thinks, well, it only has to be spiritual. And you answered that question so well. I mean, it was like, oh, goodness, I wish I could answer questions that well. You know?
Well, that was something that changed for me when I finally, Dr. Wilder didn't even know all this when I first met him. But when he started learning it, I'm like, okay, 2 things. It's physical and it's in the Bible. You know, God knew when he wrote the Bible, they didn't know. They didn't know how the brain worked back then, but the gist of it is there. And so to learn that it was physical was very life-changing.
Well, and you know, in that respect, I'm glad Ileana asked that question, and you answered it so well. The thing is that sometimes it's less and less now, but in the beginning it was like, well, this is not theologically sound, and we're like, well, no, it's in the Bible, but then I'm not going to sit in. But that's a very important point, that it's in the Bible. God made the brain. God knows it's in the brain, and people think like, God's scared of the brain or something like that because he didn't know what to do with it, you know.
Here's a verse that everybody knows, which is the return to joy that we just did at the end. Don't let the sun go down on your wrath. That just means return to joy before you go to bed. So it's physical. If you don't return to joy before you go to bed, cortisol comes out in your brain and erases everything you've learned that day.
Wow.
Wow.
So God knew that. The people in the Bible times didn't know anything about the brain. We didn't even know about the brain back in the 80s.
No, 30 years ago now, this science. So
This was the late 90s. Late
Yeah.
90s. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
Barbara, you said something about alternative view when, for example, when somebody's sharing their feelings, you want to validate them, you know, and you don't want to correct them, but you could then later on share an alternative view.
Yes.
On the issue. Could you give an example of that? Because I've always for such a long time I'm the type of person that is always trying to correct somebody, you know, and I haven't let people I haven't validated their feelings and let people express their feelings, you know. But how does the alternative view work without, you know, not letting people express their feelings and validating their feelings? You know?
Okay, that's a good question. And I just had an example of that this week. I had a friend who was very upset about something that happened in her family. And she wanted to get with me on Zoom. And so we got on Zoom and she was already crying. And I said, I'm here and go ahead and feel what you need to feel. I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. And so we sat for, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes. She cried and cried and cried and cried. She would tell me in between the crying what was going on. And after she finished crying and calmed down, I was able to tell her what she was believing that wasn't true. Part of what she was hurting her was stuff that wasn't true. But what you're talking about, Jorge, is that you start telling them that as soon as you see the tears, so to speak. That's what we've all been kind of programmed to do, is to try to fix somebody. And the reason we're doing it is because we are uncomfortable. And we don't want to see them feeling what they're feeling because it makes us uncomfortable. So I gave her an alternative view on the situation after she had finished feeling her feelings. But it was, I went slowly with that. Let me see if I can think of another one. Nothing else coming to my mind. Is that helpful? Does that answer what you're asking?
You're muted, George. George, you're muted.
I think what you said is very important, just to let a person just share their feelings and give them time, no? Give them time to really, you know, explain to you, you know, what they're feeling and to share their feelings. And I guess it's just spending time. What you said is, I think, is very important. It touched me because I'm the type of person that I guess I don't want anybody to feel hurt and feel pain, but at the same time, I have because of that, I have caused so much pain. You know, it's like it's unbelievable how. I mean, I think about, you know, my life and the people around me, and since I got married, I had this plan, you know, of how to establish utopia, you know, paradise on earth, and how you know, I was gonna make sure that my family would not have to go through pain and suffering, and it was just the contrary, you know. It was unbelievable. Yeah.
And that's why we want to remember the definition to suffering well, because we are going to have pain and we are going to have suffering until we get to heaven. So my granddaughter said to me one day, I was helping her learn how to not avoid pain, to stop avoiding pain. And I told her a little story of something that had happened to me that week. And she said, Nana, are you telling me I'm always going to have pain? Because I'm in my 70s. She said, and I said, yes, ma'am, I'm telling you that, and you need to learn what to do with it. Because utopia is not going to happen.
Right. Right.
That's,
thank you. Thank you.
George.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking. I think it's this is so good. I was thinking while you were talking, one of the things that really resonated with me is, you know, what you said about Lucky usually attacks and I retrieve, I quiet down. And, you know, it's funny, like, so we always view the person that attacks as the bad person, and the person that stays quiet and retrieves and won't talk as, wow, they're so self-controlled, they're so good, they're so fine, they're so amazing. And I got that in last week's classes. It really hit my heart. And today you said it very clearly again. And it's as bad as, you know? So that resonated so much with me, because I don't easily get out of joy. It takes a lot for me to get out of joy.
And it takes very little for me to get out of joy. Yeah. Happens in an instant. Every instant it can.
But I realized that it doesn't take that much. I mean, I do have a lot of patience, and that's when I was, like he says, you were born with that. It's so easy for you to do that, but it's not for me. It's just something I have. I do have that patience. But once I get out of joy, I realize that it's so hard for me to come back to joy. You know, I resent it a lot. I keep it in my heart a lot. It's not, I don't come back easily to joy, you know? So. Just, you know, that's just something I realized today, and in seeing that, wow, you know, I'm as bad as Lucky, you know, when I retrieve and I stay quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So,
Can you put that slide again?
I didn't understand whoever talked.
I was just asking if you could put up that slide. Oh, thank you. The slide.
Oh.
That was the slide that Giovanna was talking about from last week. And you're just confirming so many things from last week, Barbara. So, like, not just from last week, from the last 2 years. Right? I really enjoyed how you had the description of anger. I'm about to lose something important to me. And fear, I want to get away, something bad is about to happen. And sad, something or someone important to me is lost. And disgust, something or someone is not giving me life here. Like those are the cons. That's here all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I'm no longer hopeless though.
Julie, do you wanted to say something? Did Julie wanted to say something?
I can't see who it is, honey.
Okay, so, you know, just before we go and we say bye to Barbara, and we just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for all these tools and this gift. And, you know, it never gets too old, never gets too old. We always continue to learn. Something clicks all of a sudden, you know, it's amazing. So we want to thank you for putting things that are out there. I try to read the Pandora books, you know, of Dr. Jim Wilder. I got stuck. I couldn't understand it. I was trying to go back to it, and I'm like, can someone explain me this book, please? You know, and just to hear you put at a level that so easily anyone can understand. It doesn't take a scientist, a PhD person to understand it. So all of this, you put it at a level and in a language and in a way, even just those definitions that Gigi just read, I think from a 3-year-old to a 90-year-old can understand those definitions, you know? And I think that's the beauty of bringing things to a level that we can all grasp and say, wow, this I can do. You know, sometimes there's a lot of these fancy books on the brain and on science and things that we all read. And sometimes we end and we're like, okay, what did I just read, you know? And then you feel hopeless because then you thought you were going to find the answer in the book. And what I saw today is you're able to bring all this fancy stuff into a level that you can grasp it and say, wow, like Gigi just said, I have hope. There's hope in my life. Even though, like Gilbert shared, you know, I wish I had this before. Okay, you didn't have it, but moving forward, you're still young, your family's still young. Moving forward, that you can begin to apply even as of even right now, what you're learning then gives you hope, you know, that you can grab the tool right away and use it. It's to me, that's amazing. And my hat's off to you, Barbara, for putting it at a level that we can all relate and understand, for putting, affirming what we do at Hope4Life. We never went to any training per se. It's what Lucky and I have learned through sweats and tears and pain and struggles, that, you know, we've learned from here. We learn a little bit from here. And now we have this platform to be able to, we want to give it all to people, you know, learn it here, run with it. You know, we don't have it all. We did not invent this, you know, this is here, go and find out more about it, you know? So thank you, because also you affirm what we've been doing. We give a lot of these classes and say this, you know, but listening it in another way, it's beautiful. So thank you so much.
Kiki wants to say something.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I see a lot of new faces here. I know we welcomed Michael at the beginning, but we'd like to give, if this is your first time here with us, we'd like to give you an opportunity to say hi. Let us know how you got here, who invited you, or maybe you're a friend of Barbara's. We'd like to welcome you and give you some Hope4Life love today. So I don't know if maybe it's somebody's friend, but I see Daniela Membreno.
I saw 4 of my people here.
Oh, you want to introduce them, Barbara?
Oh, well, I see Julie Borders.
Oh, so Julie was earlier.
And Shonda. Shonda's the one that came up with the practice the pause.
Oh, welcome, Shonda.
Shonda's the one that's in the team book. And Stuart's in my group, and he lives in Xavier, his wife. They live in South Carolina, so they Zoom in. And Wendy was here. Wendy, I don't see her on my screen. So I'm not sure if she's still here.
Well, Julie, Shanda, Stuart, thank you for joining us and joining Barbara and supporting her too.
Oh,
this is amazing.
There's another one, Dawn. Dawn's in my group.
Oh, so welcome. Welcome. So glad you joined with us this morning. And I guess you guys agree with what we've been saying, that this was amazing and this was good and it never gets old, yeah? So thank you for joining us.
Who else, Gigi, did you want to?
I think I know BJ Mayer. There's a lot of new names that I don't recognize. So we would just like to welcome you. If you want to turn on your cameras, unmute yourself, or even if you're Barbara's friends, if you want to say something, we'd love to hear from you too.
This is Dawn. I've been listening while I've been at home, and the most encouraging part to me, a lot of what Barbara has taught, I've heard before, but it's so neat to hear all your testimonies on how God is working in your life. That encourages me. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you, Dawn, for joining and being here with us. This is what we do. I tell people, Hope4Life is based on Lucky and I getting emotionally naked in front of everyone every single Saturday. And sometimes it's total strangers, but that's what we feel we have to do. And our nakedness all of a sudden invites other people. You know what? If they can emotionally get naked, so I can maybe do that too, and it's just, it creates a ripple effect. And then people begin to open up and share things and receive things that they never otherwise done before, So, but this is just so special and wonderful and so much to learn. And it gives you so much hope, for moving forward in life,
I like what you said, Jovi, because when you said that we're naked, it's almost like in order to return to the garden, we have to be comfortable with our nakedness. So it's almost like this is what being in the garden again is, being able to say, this is my mess. Take a look in all of its glory. And being able to love one another in the mess, not laugh at each other's mess.
Anita,
I have a quick question. Barbara, I know, I understand you're in Atlanta, Georgia. If we were ever there, is there like a physical location that you guys congregate that I would love to visit if I'm there?
We meet in my home.
Okay, so then I can contact you via the website whenever I'm in town. I have family there.
I think I get emails from my blogs, but also I'm on Facebook too.
Okay, awesome.
Cool.
So good. So anyhow, everyone, thank you so much, Barbara. Again, I think let's give Barbara a good round of applause again. Thumbs up. Thank you so much, Barbara. Thank you for accepting the invitation and joining us today. This was very, very special for all of us. And thank you for your friends and that came and joined too. And if before you leave, if you can close us in prayer, that will be wonderful.
Lord Jesus, thank you so much for this time that we could get together from all over the place. Thank you for this technology that's enabled us to be able to connect without during this time that's been so difficult. Without it, I don't know, we'd probably all be a lot worse off than we have been. Thank you so much for how you take care of us in all different ways. And I thank you for each person that came on today. I pray that they will go away with one or two things that will truly change their relationships for the better. Thank you that you are teaching us how to have a mutual mind with you, to really connect with you, and to make our lives to be more like you as we grow. Thank you for Laki and Giovanna, for their heart, for their doing everything for free. I just pray that you will flood them with your grace, your mercy, and with the finances that they need, and that you will continue to bless this ministry, that lives will be changed and healing will happen. And we love you so much. We pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. God bless you, Barbara, and your friends and everyone that came on today. And have the rest of the weekend and enjoy it. Here in Miami, supposedly we're expecting a storm. I haven't heard any news. My mom's the one that calls me and says what's going on. So I haven't heard anything. So I don't know, but let's all stay safe and good and enjoy. And God bless you all. So if you need to leave, leave. If you want to stay chatting a little more, we can say hello to one another. But Barbara, thank you so much. God bless you.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Barbara. We love you and we bless you here in Hope4Life Miami.
Bye.
Bye.
We'd like to also thank everybody who joined us today on Facebook. Make sure you share it with people that could use a little more joy, not in a manipulative way. I know we would probably be like, here, you need this. So you can, but no, just go ahead and share it. We want more people to just enjoy these beautiful teachings. And also on our Facebook page, we are sharing Barbara's page, so you can connect with her through Facebook there as well. Okay, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Gigi, for doing all this, for being here. Rebecca.